Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. All right, 3 minutes. We'll get started. 3 minutes. Excellent. All right. Let's get started. All right. Oh, let me. Excellent. All right. All right, fantastic. Let's, oh, I see Angel's reconnecting. All right, just a little update. I've only graded a few of the quizzes, so I will complete that grading later tonight. So the ones that I did grade did very well, so I have no concerns at this time. But yeah, look for your grade. Once everything is graded, you should be able to, within the quiz, if like say you got a true or false or something incorrect, if you kind of hover over the score, it opens up a box. And for each question, I have an incorrect feedback that I've loaded that says, you know, what chapter, you know, where I got the material from. So it kind of skirts you to which PowerPoint. Sometimes I put the exact slide number, sometimes I don't, but that will kind of connect you to where it needs to go. All right. Oh, great. I'm showing you it's still connecting. So weird. All right. Let's get this show on the road. We've got a lot to cover tonight, right? We're covering 2 chapters. So getting into detail into some of those demographics, some of that component with our situation analysis. So just going a little deeper on some of the subjects we've talked about before. And then also going into the consumer buying process, which for you guys will be, you guys have all been consumers, right? So it's somewhat familiar to us from that end. All right, so we are looking at the internal and external component of that marketing environment, right? So we're familiar with demographics. We've talked about culture, the economic component. So again, looking at those external components, we call that the macro environment. So the macro environment, I like to word it as those things that we cannot control, right? We cannot control demographics. We can't control culture. We can't control the economic impacts that are out there, right? We have no control over, the Federal Reserve rate. We have no control over the unemployment rate, or but we need to be aware of all of these macro environment factors, because this will help us to identify potential opportunities and threats that are out there. So let's jump into this, and we're actually going to get into a kind of like a group exercise fairly quickly today. So demographics, right, is one of our external environment. It's one of those, there's kind of like those 6 big groups that are here. So we're going to walk through each of these 6 in more detail. So start out by demographics. That's the most, I like to say, the most tangible, right? So because we know exactly, how many people, the age of people that are here in the United States, the gender, right? We have all types of data in terms of household income, education, right? All of that is readily accessible information for us as a business. So an example of demographics is age, right? So we're going to use this example as part of a group exercise. So generation cohorts are used in marketing, and you've probably heard the term, right? You've heard the term baby boomers, right? If you guys have heard the term baby boomers or millennials, right? Yes, yeah, right? That is a marketing generational cohort. That's where those terms come from. Those are marketing terms. Like marketing is the one who puts together, Generation Alpha, Generation Z, right? Zoomers, right? So those are marketing terms. And we put those into these cohorts, generational cohorts, because there's certain things that impact us based on what we experience, right? So when we look at some of those, it's from marketing. Marketing tends to be the driver of what it's named. And then, there'll be little variations. But so part of this, again, we use it in marketing because a generation, people that are the same age, right, tend to look at things in a similar perspective. So what's happening in the outside world gives them a certain snapshot, a certain viewpoint, a perception. So that's why we kind of group them together. So what I'd like to do is we're going to, do you think you guys can do 2 groups? It's either going to be 2 large groups or 3 small groups. I'm going to do 2 large groups. Let's try it. We're going to have 1 group of 7 and 1 group of 6, right? So we're going to keep it at 2. And I want you to take some time, and what we're first going to do, so first of all, I want you to kind of just open up a tab, and as part of your group, we're going to power through each generation, right? Generation Alpha, Z, Millennials, Generation X, and Baby Boomers, right? So this is kind of the birth year, meaning, so like I am part of Generation X. That's where my cohort is, right? So this is, I want you to find 3 traits for each of these. So 3 general traits. So as part of your group, you might assign, make this easy, however your group wants to tackle this. but I want 3 traits, just quick and easy for each of these generational cohorts. So I'm going to put you into a group as soon as Angela comes back. And then I'm going to give you 8 minutes, and we're going to use that information again. So 6:15 is when I'm going to pull you back from your group. Have someone assigned that is going to type in your 3 traits that you came up with for each, right? So I'm going to have a whiteboard that's going to be ready for you. So let's put you into those groups. 2 groups. So group 1, and I can only see the first few. So Caroline, Chong, Heather, Jade are group 1 plus 3 others. Group 2 is Angel, Angela, Chris, and Crystal plus 2 others. All right, any questions? All right, you have 7 minutes, 3 traits for each. All right, coming back.
Where it stops being tech savvy and being tech dependent.
Yes, I agree, Angela. All right, that time went by fast, hey? Were you guys able to get through all of them? If
Yes.
not, we'll, okay, awesome. Okay, let me just make sure everyone made
I'm
it
gonna
back.
mute myself.
Excellent. All right, so here's, I want you guys to type it out because I think that's just going to be the most effective. So here's our ones. So whatever, like group 1, you can type yours out on the top half. Group 2, you can type so we're not going over each other. Do you remember how to type these out? Remember how to use the type function? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You guys remember how to use the type function? Okay, whoever from your group knows how, yep, so put in what you guys came up with. I'm gonna try and figure out why my line's not going now. What the heck is the problem here? There we go. Okay. Our Gen Z is not gonna have as much room as the rest, sorry. My lines are not straight.
A for effort.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's gonna, oh, I was having all kinds of problems last night, I tell you. All right, there we go. In the general area, I'll move so I'm not covering you guys. There, all right. Okay, so yeah, one of the benefits is we can do this, but you can also move it around and let me, all right. All right, so part of group 2, yeah, perfect.
Thanks for typing.
Yeah, is there anyone else in group 2 that, okay. So here you're having issues typing? Thank you. So if you kind of look up, if you kind of look up, there's this T in the box here, kind of right above here. If you click on that, that should open a text box for you. And you can just kind of like put it somewhere. Like for example, I'm going to put it right here. And then you just type and enter, right? And then you should be able to just, or type and click, right? So wherever that box is, and then you can move it, like this one that I just did is 1, 2, 3, right? I should be able to delete it. Yeah, so I can delete that. I can delete it if you find that. So click on it, you can adjust it, move it. Yeah, there was a fair amount of blurring between some of the Generation Z and Generation Alpha. They're probably the main distinction is going to be the age during COVID and the impact of that. That was the big event that occurred in that area. All right, group 2, like what did you guys get for Generation Alpha? Do you want to just say it or do you want to? Okay. Is anyone else helping you, Angela? Anyone else part of group 2 that can help? Okay. What did you guys, I guess, all right, tell me, group 2, tell me what your Generation Alpha traits were. What were the three traits for Generation Alpha? This 77 belongs here, just so you know. Tech oriented, all right.
Are you for group 2?
Yes. Group 2, you have all these spaces that you need to fill in yet, so yeah. I'll help. So what else?
Group 2, tech dependent.
So not only tech, oh yeah, okay, so whoever typed that, now I can move that over. Yep, so tech oriented, tech dependent, yep, we'll just, come on. Why isn't it not, it's not allowing me to grasp it. Okay, well, I'll do this. There we go. It's in the ballpark. Yeah, it's giving me issues today too. What about Gen Z? Group 2, what's some things for Gen Z?
Collaborative, also blurred over to as tech dependent.
Yep.
Pragmatic.
Pragmatic. Oh.
Pragmatic.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Yeah, they're known as part of the more shrewd. Shrewd
Yeah.
would be it. Yep. Yep. Totally got it. Think about how to. Okay. What about Gen Y? What did you guys come up with for Gen Y or millennials? So there's. Did you guys find that there might be a blurring a few years one way or another, depending on what marketing? Yeah. Yeah. So you will find that depending on what source you're using, it might be a couple years one way or another, and that's just dependent on what marketing area firm is doing it and trying to publish and all that kind of good stuff. All right. Okay. All right. So, the goal of this, again, was to just find out. I mean, it's relatively easy to get a lot of this information, right? And so in marketing, right, we use this to try to help us connect, right? Because if you're trying to connect to Generation Alpha, right? How are you going to do it? Are they going to read a newspaper? Yeah, no way.
A
Right?
digital one.
Yeah, a digital one, and even that, they're gonna, they get their where does Generation Alpha get their information? TikTok, yeah.
TikTok videos, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, can't be longer.
Yep, exactly. Everything is quick and fast, and yes, so it's very much online as the, and you're right. Snapchat will be, and they'll be interactive with other people as well within their friends group. Yeah, so that's how they're going to get their information. So if I've got a product that I think they will find a value, that's the means I'm going to have to use to connect with them. Or again, looking at the whole concept of families, yes, text the person. Yeah, or you will connect with their, whoever the adults are in their life that might purchase for them as well. Right? So sometimes we know what the product is, but we connect with who's actually going to do the exchange or the transaction, meaning probably the adult that's there. All right. So that information that you just used, right, we're going to put into play in a specific example. So I'm going to, you guys remember this, we're going to use Pepsi, right? So if you were the marketing manager for Pepsi's bubbly water, right? So not bubbler, bubbler is not a Pepsi product, but bubbly, right? But same concept, sparkling water, flavored sparkling water. Okay, so keep in mind the traits that you just went over for those. How might you communicate? And we're not going to do each cohort. Let's do, I want you guys going to go back into groups. Oh, there you go. So perfect. Angela can be a good source. So let's use Generation Z, and let's use let's do the baby boomers. Okay, let's do these two cohorts. Okay, so how might you try to communicate, right? So again, that's our 4th P, our product, price, place, and then promotion. So promotion is that integrated marketing communication. How are we going to connect with this particular generational cohort in a way that's going to allow us to introduce them, get them to purchase, create an intention, interest, desire, or action for our bubbly water product. So I'm going to put you into a group again because I want your group to discuss this. And then I want your group to come up with two methods, right? So you guys got a head start, Caroline, right? So like two programs, two methods that you're going to use to promote this brand to each cohort, right? So tell me like how you're going to connect, like is it going to be via TikTok, right? And if it is though, I want you to also think about, okay, what's it going to look like, right? So come up with a little saying kind of a description of what this is going to entail as well. So you're going to have to get a little creative. I don't do creative too often, so let's do it tonight. Let's put you back into two groups and elect a spokesperson for your group to explain. So I'm not going to have you type it out because it's going to be easier to explain. So spokesperson for each group. We will do two again. And oh, it looks like the groups are going to stay the same. So that's a sweet deal. All right. How long do you guys want? How long do you need?
10 minutes. 7
10
minutes.
minutes?
6 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay. How about 8 minutes? I like nice round numbers. So 8 minutes will bring us back at 6:35, right? So 6:35 is when I'm going to return you. There, you got the instructions. All right, there you go. 8 minutes and you'll be back. All right, coming back. 6:35. All right. Everyone returned. Perfect. All right. Group 1. Who wants to talk for group 1?
I believe we are group 1.
Okay. Got it, Jade?
I got it. All right. So for our Gen Z, we've decided that it's going to be primarily digital, social media focused. So I'll be honest, I went in, when I started writing that, I was thinking like Facebook and Instagram. And I'm like, nope, that's millennials. Gen Z is going to be the TikToks and the Snapchats and all that jazz. But keeping with that, where it's going to be short advertisements, quick things, stuff that they don't need to focus on. It's going to be kind of bundled with like coupons or deals because they're not typically going to have a lot of disposable income. So if they can get like a buy one, get one, they'll do that. They're going to focus on like celebrity cameos, things like if there's a trend or a challenge that they can get on. And then like if they are to do a limited time flavor, it's going to be some kind of tie-in flavor with like a YouTube star or TikTok person that has their flavor. And then the baby boomers are basically going to be the exact opposite of everything we said for Gen Z. So it's going to be the more traditional things. It's going to be TV commercials, print ads like magazines, or I was thinking like print out a big poster for the pharmacy. So while they're waiting in line for their prescription, they can see it. And it's going to be like a health focused because that's what they're at in their life. They're caring about that. They're looking to be cost effective. And then if there is a celebrity cameo, it's going to be celebrities from like their age. They're someone that they'll recognize and say, oh, I remember watching you on TV back then. And then if they were to do flavors, it would be just more, I don't want to say flat. That's not quite the right word. So like the Gen Zs are going to be the big in your face tie-ins, and then the baby boomers would be more the like classical traditional, like it's going to be a plum flavor or something, not as
Yeah, you're not going to get the glowberry prime, things like that. Great. Yeah. Excellent. Very good. All right, let's go to group 2 and then we'll pull it together. So group 2, what are you guys thinking?
Okay, so for generation Z, it's going to be more like digital, TikTok, Facebook, things like that. And then you could like offer, or in the ad put like no artificial sweeteners, because a lot of those sweeteners have kind of like a bad taste to it, but it's healthy and it has a great flavor because a lot of people want to be healthier. And then they have on Bubbly, they have on their tabs, they have these like little sayings on there, so they could kind of like flash those, like one says hi you or something like that, just motivational things that they could put
tab?
in ad. Yeah.
Oh, so it's
And
like a little printed thing? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And then they would probably promote more of the caffeinated bubbly than just plain bubbly. Whereas for going to like baby boomers now, they would probably promote more of the caffeine free because they don't want the caffeine. But
Very
for
replacement, but replacement for coffee, or but you're right. It's going to be much more detailed.
Yeah.
Perfect. How are you going to reach your baby boomers?
So that would not be as digital, because a lot of boomers are starting to use Facebook, though, it seems like. So you could still, do like Facebook ads. They're not going to be on Snapchat or those other ones, but otherwise, like in the newspaper or even like a billboard thing, something like that to get them to see it more.
Yeah, because they're still likely to, like the grocery store is going to have an impact because they're still likely to actually go to the grocery store and, or be enticed by some of the traditional ads. Yeah. Now, And kind of like the last one, like sometimes our Gen X and our baby boomers aren't going to be consuming it themselves. So, for example, I'm a Gen X, but my husband is a baby boomer, and we have kids that are in Gen Z, right? So we had kids a little later. So, yeah. So, yeah. So part of it might be, okay, if you are a parent, is it better for your kids to drink a sugary Gatorade, or, maybe there's, part of a little niche that bubbly starts with, okay, let's see if we can work this as part of a sports drink campaign or whatever, right? So you can get into very specific. So let me ask you this. Of these, who do you think uses Facebook the most? I mean, not just one, but baby boomers using Facebook, yes or no? Yeah, I think, you know what? All of the only people that I know that use Facebook are Gen X and baby boomers, maybe some Gen Y millennials. Yeah, to be honest, all the retired people that I know um, are huge Facebook people and Facebook Marketplace. Um, yeah, it is. Completely, like my kids won't touch Facebook. I don't, but that's because I teach marketing. But yeah, if I need anything on Marketplace, I go to my 75-year-old aunt, and she takes care of it for me. Or my cousin who's in the Gen X. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Facebook tends to be our older three, millennials, X, and boomers. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, TikTok. Yeah, now I don't know. Do you guys use TikTok on a personal basis? I'm just wondering. I tend to
No, it's
associate
too addictive.
it's too addictive. That's why. Yeah, kind of like one of those. Yeah, all of a sudden you're there, like YouTube. Right now, do you guys use YouTube?
No, I hate ads.
You hate ads. Okay, because of the ads for YouTube, and you don't find it to be, to pay for non-ads. It's there's no value to you. Usually for
Nope, I
information.
have a lot of student stuff, so I use that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, you can use it. Yeah. So now here's the reality you know, in marketing, you have access to tons and tons and tons of information as far as, who's most likely to use TikTok, and, you'll have very specifics because marketing data is so available, and there's companies that's all they do is data and analytics. So we would have specific information as to what would be the best way to reach them, timing wise, ad clicks, all of that stuff. We would have kind of like what we talked about with our social media last week, right? Data is totally available. Yeah. So, all right. So that's just, age is just one demographic, right? We have gender, income, education. So just a brief right now, like one concept or one example of where gender would be important in the macro environment would be in college education, right? Women now make up more than 60% of the US college population. So more women than men are going to college. So if we were a college, we would, how's that going to affect our marketing plan? Well, we're going to try to communicate probably with more women, and it's going to be different. We're going to communicate differently, men to women, as part of that environmental shift. Purchasing power is tied to income, right? Have you guys ever been asked, like, for a survey where you had to kind of check off your income level, not just the census? We had to do that on the census, and that's why all this marketing data is available. But do you remember ever having? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just put in there, right? I Pick and Save, which is a Kroger brand, right? Ask that. Yeah, it's a lot of places, and what it is it's data and analytics. There are Yeah, and you can do prefer not to say, right? So there's always that option, but that's part of. So let's talk about culture, right? So we have demographics, and then we have culture. So culture can be looked at from a broad sense and a narrow sense. So culture in a broad sense is just those shared morals, values, customs of a group of people. So a company's culture, right? So if we looked at the culture of the United States versus the culture of, say, a country like Paraguay, right? I'm saying Paraguay because I have family in Paraguay and that's what popped into my head, right? So Paraguay, a small country in South America, right? What would be some of the cultural differences, right, between the United States and a company in South America? Yeah, different, maybe perhaps an emphasis on family, right? Company in South America, right, is not going to be as, they're just not going to be as technologically advanced. Yeah, I mean, their way of life is entirely different than it is here in the United States. Even knowing that the United States is such a large country that we have a lot of differences within the country, right? So country culture, just all of those differences country to country. But then we get more specific in what's called regional country culture. Okay, so if you think differences between the North and the South in the United States here, right? So what are some of those cultural differences between the North and the South? What are some things that we do in the North that the South is like, I can't believe you guys do that? What are some things that the northern part of the United States does differently than the southern part of the United States? Yeah, we go when there's snow. Yeah, we don't eat grits very often. You can get grits here in the north, right? So part of what we're seeing is part of what we call that globalization, right? That meshing of culture. So you actually can get grits up here in the north in the grocery store. But you certainly don't go to restaurants and get them as a commonplace food like they do in the South, right? We have different weather structures, so as part of having different weather, we have different ways that we live our life based on, changes in weather. Right? So that second paragraph, I put it in there because it's just some interesting information. But let me ask you, so what is a regional product to Wisconsin? And Ian answered it, but what else besides bratwurst? Okay, so certain brands of beer, right? Cheese curds, yeah. Yeah, cheese curds are very, very much so. I once dated a gentleman from Australia when I worked globally. So he was from Australia. He moved to Arizona for a job, and that's how we met. We worked in the same. We both worked in the copper refining industry. So he came to visit me here in Wisconsin once, and we went out to eat, and I ordered deep fried cheese curds, and he's like, "This is the most disgusting thing I have ever heard." So, yeah, he was not a big fan. Jade, what you got?
Not to dive too into the weeds, but a fun little story of mine. So I moved to Arizona and lived in Arizona for a year.
All right, I have a problem.
You have a problem?
Because can you guys hear Jade?
Oh.
Because I cannot.
Hello?
Yeah.
I can hear him.
I
Oh,
hear
no.
him
What
clear as day,
happened? I was hearing you
even
guys
with my
just
dog in the
I
background.
didn't touch a thing. Not a thing.
Weird.
He's been silenced.
This
Yep.
is just a bummer. Yeah, I can see that you're trying to talk.
Do you just want me to transcribe what he says?
I can see that you just tried to talk. I cannot hear a thing now.
Ooh, she can't hear any of
Um,
us.
So I'm not
We're
going
all
to ask
silenced.
open-ended questions, but you have to talk because I don't know what just happened.
We
And
can
I
hear each
will
other, but she can't hear us.
to file a tech request because something just happened. Yeah, you guys can just talk
It's a
to
good thing I like
We're
this
gonna have
teacher.
to chat in. Darn it. This lecture is so much better when you can chat in because, or when you can talk in because it just flows better. So now I'm kind of bummed. All right. I don't know what just happened from a technological standpoint, but, and I don't want to take the time to try calling the tech people and have them keep popping in because then that, yeah, you guys can hear each other. Okay. Chat in. What's a product that's well known in Canada but not in the U.S.? No, I mean my speaker was up and I could hear you before. So, you know, when we started class, I could hear you just fine. I haven't changed anything on my panel. I've never even heard of bannock bread, but I'm trusting you. Poutine, yeah, poutine's the one that I think of the most too. Do any of you know of a fast food restaurant that actually introduced poutine a while ago? They ran a poutine special. Anyone know? A&W. A&W ran poutine, I want to say like 4 years ago, and it was cheese curds with like a gravy. Yeah, cheese curds and gravy. Yeah, Kinder's a great example of a product that has become very assimilated here into the United States. Yeah, I have never heard of ketchup chips. Same thing with Labatt Blue, right? So that's readily available here. Yeah, I used to go to Canada for work too, and yeah, Tim Hortons was always my stop because I love their coffee. And yeah, I would typically have, oh, Smarties from Canada. Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah, those are all over right now because of Halloween, right? All right, economic. Let's talk about economic. Economic variables are not personal. So think of economic as that macro environment. It is not what the company is experiencing economically, right? So this is a macro environment factor. So this is things like interest rates, inflation, employment or unemployment, taxes, if you're in a cyclical business, all of those economic factors that you want to be aware of but you cannot change. So if we're looking at, I actually just went into a store the other day and Christmas shopping season is coming upon us in the retail avenue. So if we just look at that, right, the Christmas shopping season from the retail standpoint, right, what economic factors are going to be important as part of that Christmas season? I know it's way too early. Yeah, so in prices, and prices are dependent on a couple of things, right? How prices are. So part of it is inflation, right? And inflation, this isn't an econ class, but inflation is supply and demand driven, and there's all kinds of things that I won't go into. But yeah, so when we're looking at inflation, yeah, what are the prices? So if inflation continues to rise, which it's not expected to, but again, it depends on who you're looking at and trusting in terms of your interest. But yeah, like same thing like unemployment or employment. Oh, I'm just reading Jade's, and just because you know what, I'm going to be in Arizona in January and February. Squeaky stuff. Yeah. Passengers like, okay, is that like a new term for like drugs? Yeah. Uh, yeah, thank you, Dave. I'll let you guys read it without having to worry about me talking. Actually, to piggyback on, I'm going to go back to piggyback on what Jade is saying. I was talking to my pastor on Sunday, and he actually had an example of culture, of regional culture. So if you're from like the Wisconsin area or you're familiar with Wisconsin, even just a 30-minute drive from like Green Bay to Shawano, right? So Shawano's a little bit northwest, I believe. So my pastor was in Shawano for a meeting, and they were at like a little restaurant, a little diner, and he asked for a diet Mountain Dew, and he's like, as soon as it came out of my mouth, like everyone stopped and stared. He's like, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, and the waitress eyes kind of like, sir, I don't know if you realize this, but you are in Shawano, and in Shawano we serve Sundrop. So that is an example of, yeah, of just a regional difference, and that's 30 minutes, 30-minute difference, and totally different soda selection between Mountain Dew and Sundrop. So yeah, so that's another example of regional culture, and how it can get really, really tiny, right? A 30-minute difference. Yeah. Okay, so social, right? When we're looking at the social component of our external environment, that's looking at trends. And we look at things like health and wellness, the concept of social responsibility / environmental impacts that are big. And then privacy concerns are one of the bigger social components that we're seeing right now as well. So if we are looking at Pepsi, right? So let's look at Pepsi. How might they continue to adapt their marketing mix? So product, price, promotion, place. How might they continue to adapt their product for health and wellness concerns? Kind of piggybacking off of that Hershey Zero sugar quiz question. So how might Pepsi, oh, I said I wasn't going to do open-ended, right? Yeah, you're going to look for less sugar, no dyes, things like that, right? So that's, again, Pepsi wants to be aware of what is going on in terms of social trends, social expectations, so they can be on the cutting edge of new products or products that are going to appeal to those concerns from the general market. Yeah, so we might be right. You might use people who are in shape or who live a lifestyle that's supposed to be healthy. And yes, exactly. You use that as part of their promotional spokespeople, right? That would be a way of doing it as well, right? So great. Technology. Two classifications of technology, front stage and backstage. So think of front stage technology as those things the consumers are actively involved in. Smartphones, GPS would be an example of front stage technology. Backstage is those things that really the consumers don't really know, but it's very impactful for marketing. So you're like your RFID, right? So a lot of your inventory, your logistical technology that's come in, that's made it. Yep, algorithms, right? AI is going to be a big thing that's going to continue to occur as well, right? So there's where technology kind of plays a role in that macro environment. Political and legal, our last one on the macro environment or the external environment is this broad concept, right? So we've got political trends that occur. that we want to stay on top of, and then legal and regulatory. So think of political trends in a more of a broad sense, and then legal is what's actually the law or the regulation. So for example, quite a while ago, at least a decade ago, many colleges, especially on the West Coast, and that's kind of where it started, colleges banned the sale of water in vending machines, right? We talked about this, I think, week 1 or week 2. So what it is colleges were very concerned because a lot of students were buying bottled water. It was creating a lot of plastic. And so therefore, they said, you know what, we're not going to sell bottled water in vending machines anymore. So if you are Pepsi and you know you've got a contract for your Aquafina bottled water brand, right, with some of these bigger colleges, or just knowing that if colleges are banning this, there's probably going to be some other effects that occur. You know, in other colleges, it's going to go from West to East Coast, and then, yeah, now all of a sudden it's going to take grasp in, you know, other areas as well. So if you're Aquafina, now you're not going to be selling bottled water. What might be an opportunity that could arise? What might be, so you're going to have to type this in again because they're not going to be able to talk. Or you can talk, but I can't hear you. I'm looking that up, Jade. Yeah, all of a sudden you can, yeah, try to come up with like a vending machine that, because, you know, remember when we started with class, we talked about how now, you know, the concept of reusable water bottles are very popular. So yeah, come up with a way that you can, yeah, you're right, like liquid death. That would be like a price point, you're right. But yeah, we maybe change the packaging, right? Have any of you guys, have you bought any of the bottled water that's in like a carton, like a milk carton would be, but it's bottled water? I bought some for a while, but I do not see it anymore. I don't see it readily available. It kind of went in and went out. I don't know if it was just cost prohibitive. Costco has it? Okay. Yeah, so that was an example of a change in packaging that occurred. But yeah, I didn't, yeah, exactly. Just like the old school days with a carton of milk. If put like a straw on the side or a straw with it. Yeah. So again, this might be, oh, aspartame. Okay. I'll have to look that up. I think it's, do the newer diet, like the zero sugar ones, have aspartame? I'll have to look that up too. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so we have our external environment, check. Internal environment, we look at the company. Core competencies, right? We talked about competitive advantage. If we back that down, we get core competencies. So core competencies are those specific things that a company does better than competitors. And these core competencies that are kind of put together translates to competitive advantage. So core competencies might be like when we talked about Ford, the fact that they've been in business for a really long time. There is existing knowledge and experience, and that's a core competency of Ford. It allows them to have knowledge that automobile makers that haven't been in business as long doesn't have, right? Location can be a core competency, right? So if you are, you know, if you're Quick Trips and you're able to, or you were able to get really good locations, and that's been part of your building block to get your brand more well known, that could be a core competency. Patents for sure, core competency. Right. So what do you think are Pepsi's core competencies? So again, you're gonna have to type it in. And again, I'm not opposed to opening up a tab and saying, oh, you know, what's a core competency of Pepsi, to get some ideas, but Don't always take what you Google as fact. You know, think through it. Yeah, they've been around. They have definitely have strong branding, right? So we could look at marketing, right? They have good marketing that's allowed them to have these really strong brands. Diversity. Yeah. Now, one of the things is, do you mean diversity of product line? Is that what you mean, Caroline? That they have a, yeah. So they have the Frito-Lay that we talked about. Yeah. So they've expanded their product portfolio. Yep, they do have global reach. Not nearly to the extent that Coke does. Coke is the leader in terms of global reach because that's been part of their overall corporate and marketing strategy for decades. So Pepsi's kind of playing catch up, but they're doing that. They're working their way through. So what we do is if I said, okay, taking the fact that they have core competencies in branding, then I want you to think through, well, what does that really mean? What does Pepsi have to do, or what did they have to do in order to get brands like Pepsi and Mountain Dew so well known, to have such a broad, what we call brand awareness? So you would kind of now think back and say, okay, well, in order for that to occur, these departments, I like you to think back to actually departments. So what departments were involved in doing that? So, okay, maybe it's the product. Yeah, and part of it might be that they did do mergers and partnerships. So how does Pepsi even come about doing a merger? What has to happen in the company for Pepsi to, or do an acquisition, let's call it, how did Pepsi get to own Frito-Lay? Well, what had to happen there? Somewhere in the company, there were departments and people that said, you know what, here's what's going on in the general market. I think we should expand our product portfolio. Yeah. So hopefully it's not shady deals. We want it to be good, strong marketing that's saying, you know what, we should buy Frito-Lay, and here's why. So they did their research. They did their, yeah. Hopefully, hostile takeovers are always a problem, right? Hopefully it wasn't a hostile takeover because they usually don't work very well. Statistically, mergers and acquisitions do not create synergy. And what I mean by that, synergy, is the fact that if I'm Pepsi, right, let's say there's Pepsi that's a standalone company and Frito-Lay is a standalone company. Well, if those two come together, in essence, they should make more profit. Yeah, together we're better. I like to say it is 1 + 1 = 3 because I like numbers, right? But they should be better together because with taking these two companies and putting them together, they should save money, which means they should have higher profitability then. And therefore that creates, yeah, so definitely you want to have, there's, mergers and acquisitions are a whole chapter in corporate strategy, and I deal with it in finance as well because it's such, yeah. But the concept is yeah. But you have to have someone internally or somewhere internally that's pushing this stuff to help grow, and that's where those core competencies lead to competitive advantage. All right, and just like you guys are saying, all of this, it makes up corporate culture. And unfortunately, I can't give you a checklist that says, if you do these 10 things, you'll have a great corporate culture, because it's just not true. There's too many variables in culture, right? Now, I know from some of the discussions that we've had, in terms of like where your homework's going to be coming in, that and what I looked at from the quiz, you guys have some good companies that you've worked for or work for that has good, strong culture. And that is exciting to see because sometimes it's a bummer because I get a lot of students that like really don't like where they work or have worked. So what I want, and hopefully from you guys, as part of your educational experience and going out and becoming strong leaders in your field, you're going to develop a corporate culture. Again, that's why we talk about that mission and that vision. Yeah. It is not unusual to lose jobs with mergers, right? It's an unfortunate part. Hopefully, it brought you to better things, right? So hopefully, right? So culture, right? So merger and acquisitions, stressful, right? But hopefully in the long run, you can look back and think it was beneficial, especially you guys, because you're good. It can go both ways. Yeah, it can. Yeah. I've had lots of really good examples coming from students of mergers or acquisitions that have really turned out well. They were well done. So hopefully that's telling me that businesses are learning how to do it better, right? That they've used some of the things that can go wrong because it's so complex and are starting to get it right. On this part, I kind of feel like I'm, talking to, you guys don't need me to say this, right? That we need to do periodic assessments, right? Just like anything else, we have a plan and then we stop and assess what's happening. Is it going the way we thought it is? If not, what do we need to change? So we take our objectives and maybe even our whole strategy and change it and, adapt, right? So yeah, typically, one of the acquiring, whatever you're acquiring, there's a reason for an acquisition somewhere down the road. A lot of it is you're struggling in some area. A lot of times it's a debt issue. Okay, so I'll let you read the rest, right? Poor, declining performance. We're going to talk about competitors, and then we're going to move on to chapter 6, right? Okay, so competition. We want to know our competitors' strengths and weaknesses, right? So if we're planning a marketing campaign, a promotion campaign, part of what I believe is going to be a competitive reaction should be a part of that, right? So we want to be proactive rather than reactive. So what is, if I am Pepsi Bubbly, did Coke have a competitive reaction to Pepsi Bubbly? Did Coke come up with does Coke have a sparkling water? Did Coke have a reaction, a competitive reaction? It's definitely not as well known. Yeah, they did. They did. I don't think it's taken off as well, at least in this area, based on my perception. I did not look at the marketing stats for it. But yeah. So just like anything else, they came up with their own product, and whether it's going to do well for them or not, we'll see. That might be a potential acquisition area for Coke, to maybe be a little more proactive on that end. And then along with competitors, right, we are seeing more and more corporate partners. So sometimes our corporate partners are our competitors, right? We talked about that a little while ago when we said, okay, Hulu was made up of competitors, right? It was CBS, NBC, I think Universal Studios at the time, right? So these competitors came together to form this joint venture called Hulu, because there was, changes in technology in the macro environment and streaming. So sometimes, depending on the situation, we can actually make our competitors part of our corporate partners, and sometimes it's just a cooperative strategy. All right, here's kind of your 6 or your 5 little checks that you can kind of put in, go back, review the notes again. These are the main things that we just talked about. And then here's your homework for chapter 5. Okay. So very brief, external, right? So don't feel you don't have to write pages and pages. So just kind of get your feet wet a little bit on some of this research for our external environment using these 6 macro environment factors that we went over, right? One example of demographics, social, technology, economics, political, legal, and culture. All right. So chapter 5 homework. Do you guys want a few minute break before we go on to chapter 6? You have to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. No? Okay, then we're going to, let's keep going so we can get you out of here. This is going to, chapter 6 is going to make a lot of sense to you. And it's going to be shorter than I anticipated because I can't have you guys talk through your decision. But maybe I'll have you write. Okay, let me see. I'm thinking how I can approach this differently. Okay, consumer behavior, consumer buyer behavior. When we're looking at consumer buying process, we have two big groupings, right? Extended problem or limited problem. So for example, if I asked you, what is something that you bought today that was like under $10? What's something that you actually bought today that was under? So again, okay, a cheeseburger, right? There's soda. Right? That would be considered limited problem solving, right? You were hungry or you needed something to drink, so you kind of just buy it, right? You don't research out too often. Now, a sewing kit you might research, but depending, right? So some of this, there might be some limited thought process, but limited problem solving is what we do most often. Our second bigger one is called extended problem solving. So these are bigger areas. So if I asked you, and you don't have to write it down, but think of a purchase you made in the $2,000 to $10,000 range, right? So for most of us, it tends to be extended because it's a fair amount of money. It's not just like like an example, like a laptop, right? That's a perfect example. So thinking of that process, this is what tends to happen with our mind. Yeah. So need recognition, information search, alternative, evaluation, purchase, and post-purchase. Okay. So if you think, again, okay, need recognition, functional needs or psychological needs. So if you wanted that cheeseburger or that soda, that would be a functional need. You're hungry or you're thirsty, right? So even though, it's like, oh, you didn't stop and think, oh, why am I buying this cheeseburger, right? We kind of just did it. It was a functional need. There are things like psychological needs. So for example, if you're having a really bad day and you're like, you know what, I am just not having a good day, so therefore I'm going to go to Starbucks or Karuba Coffee or whatever, and I'm going to order, a $6 coffee because I am hungry or thirsty and or I'm tired and I need the caffeine. But there's a psychological component to it as well. Okay? We can have purchases that are strictly psychological, strictly functional, or kind of an example like that where it's a little bit of both, right? So, oh, that's a bummer. Your dogs, well, it's not a bummer. It's good for your dogs, but do they have the little cones on, Scott? So their dogs are walking around with cones on. No? Do they do cones anymore? Maybe they don't do it. Do they not do cones anymore when you're spaying a dog? Maybe technology. Oh, for cats? Not. That's interesting. Technology has changed. Okay, so for cats, yes, interesting. All right, so psychological needs would be, for example, I went to get my oil changed for my vehicle. Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Thank you, Ian. And I have a perfectly good 2020 Chevy Equinox, right? It works well for me. I get great gas mileage. It fits my needs. But because I was in the dealership and waiting around for my oil change, I was, the idea of a new car was there because there's like cars all over, and there's like some really cool things that are in cars now. And typically I keep a car for a while, but I'm like, wow, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. And, maybe I deserve a new 2024 car that's really, that's really nice. Right, that's a psychological need. There's no functional component to it, whatever. And, it may grow into more because I actually did start the next phase on my phone because technology allows me to, right? I'm in the dealer and like, what is the cost of these new cars now? So I'm like researching out some of these new cars and some of the new features that are on these cars. That is step 2, information search. On the functional side, we'll do an information search as well. It's just going to be really fast, right? If you're thirsty and you're driving, you might just information search. I know Quick Trip is here. I know McDonald's is here. I know grocery store is coming up, and I'd be able to get in and out. Right in our mind, we go through and examine all of the knowledge about the potential to get the product or the product that we want. Right? I know Quick Trip has something different than McDonald's. It has something different than Burger King. That has something different than Panera. Right? That's a search for information. Right? If you're looking at a laptop, right? What are some of the ways that you would search out information for a laptop? What tools would you use to find information on a laptop? Oh my gosh, Scott, I just saw that. I have to tell you. Yeah, you'd start. Oh my gosh. See, I would be the one that would buy the $40,000 vehicle, and I'd buy my husband cashews because he loves cashews from Costco for $12. Yeah. We'd go online. Typically, most times now, we go online, we start that information search on all of those different areas. You go, products, consumer reports, whatever it is you're looking for. That's all part of that information search. And it makes just logical sense that when we're going, whoa. Why is that there? When we're going through our information search, then we evaluate alternatives. Okay, so if I'm looking for a vehicle, it might be front wheel drive. Yeah. Did you have that happen, Ian? I've never seen a laptop smoke. Although I just bought a new Glassdoor merchandiser that's not doing so well. That actually is freezing everything. Okay, good. Okay, the magic. Thank you. I love how you guys keep me in line. I learned so much from you guys. All right. We evaluate our alternatives, right? And part of the ways that we might evaluate is based on what we consider risk, right? Performance risk, financial risk, social risk, physiological risk, right? So if you're looking for a laptop, yeah, do we have certain areas that, issues with Google, issues with smoking, issues with being able to take it where I want to take it in terms of size, right? So is it going to, I mean, laptop maintenance wouldn't be an issue, but with the vehicle, it certainly would be. So these are some of our evaluative that we go through as well. Okay, so we evaluate our alternatives. Oh, that's how you justify it, Scott. Okay. You were taking one for the team. I get it. I get it. And there we go. We actually purchased something, right? Yeah, we purchased it. So this, remember last week when we looked at social media, right? We looked at conversion rate. Oh, now Caroline, like, did your husband buy something good for him and then, you know, get you something not so great? Was it a reciprocal transaction? Yeah, I tend to do almost all the buying in our household, so I get. Although my husband, oh, he got you the Kindle. Okay, so that was pretty nice. Yeah. My husband bought. Yeah. Yeah, I would be the one that would buy the underwear too, because I'm pragmatic. I'm pragmatic, especially for my boys, my kiddos. Okay. So this ties in with our social media, our click rates, our conversion rates. Yeah. Post-purchase is our last step, and it is a step because here's where we can build on that relationship. Yeah. See, you never know the benefit of this lecture, right? All of a sudden, everything just clicks and you're like, oh yeah, I needed, new socks. Yeah, so how can we possibly create customer loyalty? So if I'm a laptop manufacturer, what kinds of things could I do after the purchase? So number one, you can have a quality product, okay? But what else? What's something specifically? Warranties, yes, that's a great example. So warranties are a great example of reducing what we call post-purchase dissonance, right? So how can I reduce the likelihood that someone's going to be unhappy that they did that purchase, right? So yeah, free soft customer support. Those are great examples. That is a way to connect, to try to alleviate this, but then it's also giving you a reason to have contact with the customer. And that's going to be our source of our customer relationship management, following up, getting that loyalty. So we know that laptops are purchased fairly often. So you know what, if you're going to need another laptop in 2 or 3 years, if you've got, or you're right, the option of being upgraded, right, or turning it in. Some with cell phones, that's a typical concept, right? So this is an area that we can really try to build that relationship and loyalty. Okay, so here's taking our components, kind of putting it into a visual, right? So again, what are some of the things that affect the consumer decision process, right? So our marketing mix, but like when you purchase something like a new vehicle, right? Do you guys talk to anyone, family, reference groups, say, okay, who has a Dodge Ram or whatever, or what do you like about your Dodge? What do you like about your Ford? What do you like about your Chevy, right? That's what we would call social factors. Your Toyota, thank you. Yep. So finding out and getting input. Yeah. So social factors, right? Situational factors, right? An example of that would be mine I started my information search sitting in the dealership. Yes, so a great example, having that family as a reference. 5 stages, difference between a need and a want, right? Need is something we need, want is that psychological. Okay, functional, our perceived risk, and post-purchase. Homework for this chapter as well, right? So homework, there's 2 chapters, so there's really 2 homework questions that are due, right? So it's 1 submission, but 2 areas that are covered, okay? So if by chance you did not submit both chapter 3 and chapter 4 homework, you should see it. I got all homework, but there were a few that I think it just kind of slipped. If you have the other one and you just didn't submit it, email it to me tonight and I will go in and change it. I typically don't accept late homework, but there's 2 chapters, 1 homework submission, just so I'm clear. All right. So chapter 5 and chapter 6 homework for this week. Can you believe that we only have one more lecture and then it's midterm? Only 1 more lecture and then it's midterm. Yeah, next week is chapter 5 already. So to give you a heads up, yeah, it's going fast. It does. So next week, September 28th, after lecture, I will release the midterm exam. Okay. Okay, sounds good. The midterm, that's a great question, Heather. The midterm is similar, but it's going to be, I'm going to ask more in-depth questions. So you'll get some of the multiple choice true and false. Those are just like kind of drilling in terminology and thought process, but I expand on it a little bit more by having us go a little deeper. So similar, but not but deeper. The midterm is 160 points, so it's about double what the quiz. The quiz was, I think, 80 points. So yeah, the midterm's 160 or 180, actually, more than double, a little more than double. Yeah. Yes, the midterm can be saved, come back to just like the quiz. And you'll have almost 2 weeks, right? Because I release it at the end of lecture on September 28th. We do not have lecture on October 5th, right? So I give you, in essence, I give you the class time of October 5th to work on the midterm exam. So there's no excuses why you can't have the exam completed. So no lecture, no discussion board on October 5th. The midterm is due on October 11th. Right? So I just like to release it early because that, life happens. So if you can get to it early and want to get it out of the way, then you have the option to do so. So yeah, so you have quite a long time to do it. And then we're going to zip right back into lecture. It's going to be 2 chapters a week from the midterm on, but we're getting deeper into our 4 Ps. So we're going to bring back some of our visuals and things like that. That's going to occur as part of the lectures for weeks 8, 9, and 9, and then 11. All right. Yes, busy weeks. Well, okay. Hopefully good wedding, a nice fall wedding coming up. All right. Okay. If you don't have any questions, you are free to go. Your participation, 24 out of 24. Online participation, 24 out of 24. Online students, the 2 keywords for this week, if you're listening to lecture, the 2 keywords are culture, and keyword number 2 is demographics. Keyword number 2 is demographics. So there you are, online students. Students here, good night. Have a great week, and please contact me with any information. I will work on quiz grading now. So you'll have those in the next day.